The prince pretended to be poor. Then a single mother taught him what true love is. The church bell tolls. Dust rises in the village square. A poor widow clutches her child as the bailiff sneers, ready to cast her into ruin. And then, out of the crowd, a stranger steps forward. He looks like a common man, but his coin shines with the mark of a crown. By her firelight, he mends her roof, teaches her daughter to pray, and steals her guarded heart. But whispers travel faster than hoofbeats, and soon armored riders thunder in. For this man is no ordinary laborer. He is the prince himself, hunted by a powerful duke who would see the widow destroyed for daring to stand beside him. Now the court jeers, the crowd turns, and a single mother must choose. Speak the truth, that could damn her forever, or defend the man who risked his throne for her love. Will the crown crush her courage, or will love prove stronger than any kingdom? Comment below and tell me where in the world you're joining from. And if this story made you pause for a moment, hit that subscribe button for more. The early spring mist clung to the cobblestones as Clara Bower made her way through the village market, her young daughter Anna's small hand clasped tightly in hers. The familiar sounds of market day surrounded them, the clucking of hens in their wooden crates, the calls of vendors hawking their wares, the clatter of cartwheels on stone. But Clara barely heard them, her thoughts heavy with worry as she clutched her basket of meager trade goods. "Mama, look at the sweet buns." Anna tugged at her hand, pointing to a baker's stall where fresh bread and pastries steamed in the cool morning air. "Not today, dear heart." Clara squeezed her daughter's hand, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. The few spools of thread and carefully hoarded cloth scraps in her basket might trade for a loaf of bread, perhaps some eggs if she bargained well. But sweet treats were beyond their means. Well, well, if it isn't Widow Bower. The sneering voice cut through the market's bustle like a knife. Clara's spine stiffened as she turned to face the bailiff. He stood with his hands on his hips, his fine wool coat marking him as far above the humble villagers around them. The crowd parted, leaving Clara and Anna exposed in a circle of unwanted attention. "Your rent is 3 weeks overdue," the bailiff announced loudly, clearly enjoying the spectacle he was creating. "Perhaps you think the rules don't apply to you." I've been ill, sir," Clara said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The winter fever—" "Excuses!" The bailiff's face reddened. "The Duke's dues must be paid, illness or no. You'll pay now or face the consequences." Clara felt the curious stares of the villagers burning into her. Some looked away in discomfort. Others whispered behind their hands. Her cheeks flamed with shame as she clutched Anna closer. "Surely some arrangement can be made," a deep voice spoke from behind them. Clara turned to see a tall man she didn't recognize. He wore plain traveling clothes, but something in his bearing commanded attention. His dark eyes met the bailiff's with quiet authority. "This is no concern of yours, stranger," the bailiff blustered, though Clara noticed he'd taken a small step backward. "I disagree." The stranger's voice remained calm but firm. "You show little Christian charity to a widow and her child. What is the amount owed?" Before Clara could protest, the stranger had produced a gleaming gold coin and pressed it into the bailiff's hand. The official's eyes widened at the sight of it. "This should cover the debt with some to spare," the stranger said. "I trust you'll provide a proper receipt?" the bailiff stammered, suddenly courteous. Of course, sir. Right away." As the bailiff hurried off to write the receipt, Clara turned to her mysterious benefactor. "Sir, I cannot accept such charity. 'Tis too much." "Consider it a loan, then," he said with a gentle smile. "To be repaid when fortune allows." Clara managed a stiff thank you, but her pride stung. What sort of reckless wanderer carried gold coins to throw away on strangers? Still, she couldn't deny the relief of having the debt paid. Later, as she and Anna walked home past the old stone bridge spanning the river, Clara studied the receipt the bailiff had given her. The coin's imprint had left a clear mark on the paper. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the royal insignia, the crowned lion of the realm. She stopped walking, her mind racing. Who was that stranger? Why would someone carrying royal coin dress so plainly? Clara's brow furrowed as suspicion bloomed in her chest, but she had no answers to her growing questions. Evening shadows crept across the worn floorboards of Clara's small cottage as she stirred the thin broth bubbling in the pot over the hearth. The familiar scent of boiled vegetables filled the humble room, though there were far fewer vegetables than she would have liked floating in the watery soup. Anna sat at their rough wooden table, her legs swinging as she watched her mother cook. "Mama, do you think we'll see the kind stranger again? The one who helped us at the market?" Clara's hand tightened on the wooden spoon. "Best not to dwell on such things, child. Noble folk sometimes play at charity, but only to make sport of common folk like us." She tried to keep the bitterness from her voice, remembering past humiliations at the hands of wealthy visitors who treated the villagers' struggles as entertainment. "But he didn't seem like he was making sport," Anna protested, her young face earnest in the fading daylight. "He was nice. Appearances can deceive, dear heart. Now, help me set the—" A knock at the door cut off Clara's words. She exchanged worried glances with Anna. Few visitors came at this hour, and fewer still brought good news. Clara wiped her hands on her apron and crossed to the door, opening it cautiously. There, on her doorstep, stood the stranger from the market, his arms full of split firewood. In the golden evening light, she could better see his features, strong jaw, kind eyes, and in bearing that seemed at odds with his simple clothes. "Good evening, Mistress Bauer," he said with a small bow. "I noticed your woodpile was low and—" He gestured to the bundle he carried. Clara's pride bristled. "We have no need of— Mama, let him help." Anna rushed to the door, her face bright with excitement. "Please! The roof leaks when it rains, and he looks strong enough to fix it." "Anna!" Clara scolded, mortified by her daughter's forwardness. The stranger's eyes crinkled with genuine warmth as he smiled at Anna. "Your daughter speaks wisdom, Mistress Bauer. I noticed the sagging beams as I approached. I am handy with tools, and I seek honest work in these parts." Clara hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. The roof did leak terribly, and with Anna's pleading eyes upon her. "Very well," she said reluctantly, "but you must allow me to compensate you with a meal, at least." He set to work immediately, his movements sure and practiced as he examined the roof beams. Clara had to admit he seemed to know what he was doing, though she still wondered at a man who carried gold coins yet did manual labor. When he finished, Clara insisted he join them for supper, though she flushed at the meagerness of their meal. He accepted graciously, sitting at their small table as if it were the finest dining hall. "I realize I haven't properly introduced myself," he said, breaking off a piece of bread. "I'm Leo. I've been traveling, seeking work where I can find it." "A laborer who carries gold coins?" Clara couldn't help asking, watching him carefully. His smile didn't waver. "Fortune has smiled on me at times. I believe in sharing such blessings when I can." Clara noted how he avoided a direct answer, how his manner of speech occasionally slipped into more refined patterns than a common laborer would use. Her suspicions grew. After he left with promises to return and help with more repairs, Clara sat alone at the table. Anna had gone to bed, her dreams surely full of their mysterious visitor. Clara placed the coin receipt on the table, studying it in the flickering candlelight. The royal crest of Altenburg was unmistakable in the wax. Impression, the crowned lion rampant, holding a sword. Her heart tightened in her chest. Leo, the humble laborer seeking work, carried coins marked with the royal seal. He could not possibly be who he claimed to be. But if that was true, who was he really? And what did he want with them? Sunday morning dawned clear and bright, the church bells ringing across the village of Altenburg. Clara smoothed Anna's best dress, faded but clean, as they hurried along the cobblestone path to the stone church that had stood watch over their village for generations. Inside, the familiar scent of beeswax candles and old wood wrapped around them. Clara guided Anna to their usual place among the other villagers in the wooden pews below. She could feel the weight of stares and whispers following them. Did you hear? The stranger paid her debt to the bailiff. Fixing her roof, they say. Such impropriety, a man alone with a widow. Clara kept her eyes forward, her back straight, though her cheeks burned. Above them, in the gallery reserved for nobility, she could see the rustle of silk gowns and hear the subtle tap of jeweled fans. The social divide was never more apparent than during Sunday service, with the nobles looking down upon the common folk from their elevated perch. As the priest delivered his sermon about charity and kindness, Clara found her thoughts drifting to Leo. He hadn't attended the service, another peculiarity for someone claiming to be a simple laborer. Most working folk wouldn't dare miss Sunday worship. After the final hymn, Clara and Anna emerged into the sunlit churchyard. That's when she noticed them, two men in fine clothes that somehow didn't quite suit them, standing apart from both. Nobles and villagers. Their eyes followed Leo, who was across the square speaking with the carpenter. Clara's heart quickened. There was something about their bearing, the way they watched. They reminded her of guards she'd seen at the estate. "Mama, look! It's Leo!" Anna waved enthusiastically at their friend, who smiled and crossed to meet them. "Good morrow, Mistress Bauer, Miss Anna." Leo bowed slightly. "I thought perhaps I might assist Anna with her letters this afternoon if you permit it." Before Clara could object, Anna clasped her hands together. "Oh, please, Mama. I want to learn to write as beautifully as Sister Margaret." Clara hesitated, but she couldn't deny her daughter's eager face or the opportunity for Anna to learn. Education was precious and rarely offered to common folk. "Very well, but we'll work in the garden where I can watch while I tend the vegetables." The afternoon sun warmed the small kitchen garden as Leo sat with Anna at the rough wooden table Clara had dragged outside. Clara pulled weeds and listened as he guided Anna's hand, showing her how to form each letter with surprising patience and expertise. "See how the B has two curves, like embracing arms?" His cultured accent slipped through more prominently as he taught. "And the A, like the peak of a mountain, reaching toward heaven." Clara straightened, wiping soil from her hands. "You speak like an educated man, sir. Strange for a wandering laborer." Leo's smile dimmed slightly. "I was fortunate in my youth to receive some schooling. And your coin with the royal seal? Was that also good fortune?" He turned back to Anna's slate, avoiding Clara's gaze. "Sometimes fortune favors the prepared mind, Mistress Bauer." Clara opened her mouth to press further, but Anna's delighted cry at successfully writing her name distracted them both. The rest of the afternoon passed pleasantly enough, though Clara's suspicions continued to gnaw at her. As dusk approached, Leo helped them carry the table back inside. As he lifted his side, something fell from his pocket, a folded paper sealed with red wax. Clara's heart nearly stopped when she glimpsed the imprint, the crowned lion of Altenburg, the same as on the coin. Without thinking, she stepped on the letter, covering it with her skirt. Leo didn't appear to notice its loss, bidding them good evening and promising to return tomorrow to continue Anna's lessons. Once he had gone, Clara retrieved the letter with trembling fingers. She stood in her darkening cottage, staring at the royal seal. Who was this man, really? A noble's messenger? A spy? Something worse? The letter might hold answers, but breaking a royal seal was a serious crime. She tucked the letter away in her sewing basket, her mind churning with fear and curiosity. The simple life she'd built for herself and Anna suddenly felt precarious, balanced on the edge of mysteries she didn't understand. The morning sun had barely risen when Clara heard the steady thump of hammer strikes above her head. She rushed, outside, still tying her apron, to find Leo already perched on her cottage roof, working with practiced efficiency. "Sir, you cannot simply begin work on my home without permission," Clara called up, trying to sound stern despite the warmth spreading in her chest at his thoughtfulness. The early light caught the strong lines of his shoulders as he worked, his sleeves rolled up despite the morning chill. Leo paused, wiping his brow with his sleeve. "My apologies, Mistress Bauer. The loose shingles worried me, and I wished to finish before the weather turned." Anna darted out of the cottage, her face bright with excitement. "Leo, will you tell me more stories while you work, like yesterday, about the grand balls and beautiful gardens?" Clara's eyes narrowed at this mention of nobility, but Leo smoothly redirected Anna's attention. "Perhaps later, little one. For now, would you be kind enough to fetch water for the other workers arriving soon?" True to his word, several village men appeared shortly after, offering to help with the repairs. Clara watched, kneading bread dough by the window, as Leo worked alongside them. He carried the heaviest beams, matched the carpenter's skilled sawing, and shared water from his own cup with the others. "Never seen a fellow work so hard," old Thomas muttered admiringly as he passed Clara's window. "No airs about him, neither." By midday, the roof was nearly complete. Clara served the workers a simple meal of bread and cheese, which they accepted gratefully. As they ate in the shade of the apple tree, she slipped away inside, her fingers finding the letter hidden in her apron pocket. The seal cracked easily under her trembling fingers. The fine parchment felt foreign in her roughened hands as she unfolded it, revealing elegant script. "To His Royal Highness, Prince Leopold of Altenburg, your continued absence from court cannot be tolerated. Your father's health wanes, and the succession must be secured. The Duchess of Mersburg's daughter awaits your attention." Clara's vision blurred. The letter slipped from her numb fingers, floating to the floor like a fallen leaf. The man on her roof, who carried lumber and shared meals with peasants, was the heir to Altenburg itself? Horror seized her as memories flooded back, her sharp words, her suspicions, her casual manner with him, and Anna treating him like a common laborer. The afternoon passed in a haze of anxiety. Clara watched Leo, Prince Leopold, work tirelessly until the sun began to set, directing the other men with natural authority she should have recognized sooner. As the workers departed with grateful bows to their mysterious helper, Clara gathered her courage. "A word, sir, if you please," she said quietly, leading him to the private shade of the apple tree. Her heart thundered in her chest as she faced him. "You are no laborer, sir. Why do you play at poverty among us?" Leopold's face remained calm, though something flickered in his eyes. Relief, perhaps, or resignation. His voice was soft but steady as he replied, "Because truth is found where no crown can follow." Clara stood frozen, the weight of his words settling around them like evening mist. The man before her bore calluses from honest work, sweat from true labor, yet carried himself with an unmistakable nobility that went deeper than any title. In the fading light, he was both more and less than the prince she should fear. He was simply Leo, the man who had helped her daughter learn her letters and fixed her roof without seeking praise or reward. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions and complications neither dared voice. The sound of Anna singing inside the cottage floated out to them, a reminder of simple joys and uncomplicated truths that even a prince might wish to find. The morning dew still clung to the grass as Clara watched Leo through her cottage window. His steady movements as he chopped wood showed both strength and grace. The rhythmic thunk of the axe had become a familiar comfort over the past few days, like the beating of a strong heart in her quiet world. "Mama, look! Master Leo showed me how to write my name in Latin." Anna's excited voice drew Clara's attention. Her daughter sat at their worn wooden table, carefully forming letters with a piece of charcoal on a scrap of paper. Clara's chest tightened, with an unfamiliar warmth. For so long, it had been just the two of them, mother and daughter against the world. But now Leo's presence filled empty spaces she hadn't even known were there. He carried water from the well without being asked, fixed loose boards in the floor, and spent hours teaching Anna things Clara could never give her. "Very fine writing indeed," Clara praised, smoothing Anna's hair. Through the window, she saw Leo pause in his work, wiping his brow with his sleeve. Despite knowing his true identity, she found it harder each day to see him as the prince. His hands were now rough from labor, his fine bearing softened by genuine care. As the sun climbed higher, Leo brought in an armload of split wood. "I thought we might share a meal," he said, setting down a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside were fresh bread, cheese, and 3 red apples. Simple fare, but more than Clara usually saw in a week. They sat together at the table, the afternoon light streaming through the window. Anna chattered about her Latin lessons between bites of apple, her eyes bright with excitement. Clara remained quiet, lost in thoughts of another meal, years ago, when her world had still been whole. "You're troubled," Leo said softly, after Anna had run outside to play. Clara traced the grain of the wooden table with her finger. "My husband, Thomas," she began, then fell silent. The words sat heavy in her throat. "Tell me," Leo encouraged gently. "He died in the prince's wars." The bitterness she'd carried for so long seeped into her voice. 6 years ago, the recruiters came through our village, promising glory and good pay. Thomas didn't want to go, but we needed the money. She gave a hollow laugh. "We never saw a single coin of it." Leo's face had gone pale. I am so sorry," he whispered. "Sorry?" Clara's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "I was left alone with a 2-year-old child. No money, no help. The bailiff started pressing for rent before Thomas was even cold in his grave." She looked directly at Leo. "While noble lords played at war from their safe castles, good men died in muddy fields." Leo pushed away his half-eaten bread, looking sick. Clara could see the realization in his eyes, how his family's decisions, made so far removed from common life, had shattered countless homes like hers. "I cannot change the past," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "But I swear to you, Clara, I will not forget this lesson." The raw honesty in his voice touched something in Clara's heart. For the first time, she saw not just the prince playing at being common, but a man truly trying to understand her world. Their moment of connection shattered as Anna burst through the door, her face flushed. "Mama," she whimpered. "I don't feel well." Clara was on her feet instantly, gathering her daughter in her arms. Anna's skin burned against her hand, and her small body trembled. Fear gripped Clara's heart as she tucked Anna into bed. The room grew darker as evening approached. Clara knelt beside Anna's bed, clasping her hands in desperate prayer. "Please, Lord," she whispered, "not my child. Take anything else, but spare my Anna." The girl's breathing came quick and shallow, her forehead blazing with fever. The cottage, walls seemed to press in around them, and every creak of the newly repaired roof felt like a threat. Clara had never felt more terrified or alone, even with Leo's solid presence nearby. As night descended, the familiar comfort of her home transformed into a prison of fear, where every shadow held the threat of loss she couldn't bear to face. The first light of dawn crept through the cottage windows, painting shadows on Anna's feverish face. Clara pressed a damp cloth to her daughter's burning forehead, her hands trembling as she worked. Anna's breathing came in shallow gasps, her small chest rising and falling with frightening quickness. "Mama," Anna whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so hot." Tears streamed down Clara's cheeks as she smoothed back Anna's sweat-soaked hair. The child's skin blazed beneath her touch. "Hush now, my love. Save your strength." Leo appeared in the doorway, his face etched with concern. "The fever's worse?" Clara could only nod, choking back a sob. "I cannot lose her. She's all I have in this world." Without a word, Leo strode to the cottage door. "I know someone who can help. I'll return as swiftly as possible." He grabbed his cloak from its peg and disappeared into the misty morning. Moments later, Clara heard the thunder of hoofbeats as he galloped away on old Werner's borrowed mare. The morning dragged by with agonizing slowness. Clara sang softly to Anna, praying between verses of childhood lullabies. The sound of approaching wheels made her heart leap. Through the window, she saw Leo helping the physician down from his carriage, the doctor's black bag clutched firmly in hand. Make way," the physician commanded as he entered, his stern face betraying no emotion. He set his bag on the table and began removing instruments that made Clara's blood run cold, glass cups, small blades, and vials of dark liquid. "Your Grace," the physician said with a slight bow to Leo, but Leo shook his head sharply. "Attend to the child," he ordered, his voice carrying the unmistakable tone of authority despite his common dress. The physician worked methodically, applying heated glass cups to Anna's back and chest, meant to draw out the illness. Clara winced at her daughter's whimpers but held steady, Leo's strong presence beside her lending strength she didn't know she possessed. "She must drink this," the physician declared, measuring dark liquid into a spoon. "It's bitter but necessary." Anna tried to turn away from the medicine, but Clara coaxed her gently. "Please, my sweet girl." "For Mama?" Leo knelt beside the bed, his voice gentle. "Shall I tell you a story while you take your medicine, little one? About a brave princess who faced dragons?" Anna's eyes flickered with interest, and she allowed Clara to spoon the bitter draught between her lips while Leo spun a tale of courage and adventure. The physician nodded approvingly as he packed away his instruments. "Keep her warm. Continue with the medicine every 4 hours. I'll return tomorrow to check her progress." The hours crept by. Leo refused to leave, helping Clara tend to Anna through the long afternoon. He brought fresh water from the well, stoked the fire, and even managed to convince Anna to swallow a few spoonfuls of broth. As evening approached, Clara noticed Anna's breathing had grown deeper, more regular. Her skin, though still warm, no longer burned like fire beneath Clara's touch. Hope bloomed in her chest as she watched her daughter's peaceful sleep. "Thank you," she whispered to Leo, who stood nearby, "for bringing the physician, for staying, for everything." "I couldn't bear to see either of you suffer," he replied softly, his eyes gentle as he gazed at her. The day's fear and worry crashed over Clara suddenly, leaving her swaying with exhaustion. Leo guided her to the chair by the hearth. "Rest now. I'll watch over her." Clara meant to protest, but her eyes grew heavy. As she drifted toward sleep, she felt Leo's warm hand cover hers where it lay on the chair's arm. The touch was light, comforting, and in that moment she knew with certainty that this man, prince or peasant, held not only her trust but perhaps her heart as well. The morning sun had barely warmed the cottage walls when the thunder of hooves shattered the village's peace. Clara looked up from where she sat mending one of Anna's dresses, her heart skipping at the sound of men shouting and horses snorting outside. "Mother?" Anna called from her bed, still weak from her recent fever. "What's happening?" Before Clara could answer, the cottage door burst open. Duke von Rheinfeld swept in, his elaborate burgundy coat a stark contrast to their humble surroundings. 6 armed guards crowded behind him, their boots tracking mud across Clara's clean floor. "Where is the vagabond?" the Duke demanded, his cold eyes scanning the room. "The criminal who dares to carry noble insignia?" Leo stood from where he'd been stoking the hearth fire, his shoulders straight despite his simple laborer's clothes. "I am no criminal, Your Grace." The Duke's lip curled. "Search him," he commanded his guards. 2 men stepped forward, roughly, patting down Leo's clothing while he stood perfectly still, his face calm but resolute. "Here, my lord." One guard pulled the royal coin from Leo's pocket, holding it up to catch the light. "And this seal ring as well." The Duke snatched both items, examining them with narrowed eyes. "Just as I suspected. Stolen from some noble's belongings, no doubt. Only those of royal blood may carry such marks of privilege." "Please." Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling but determined. "There must be some mistake. This man has done nothing but help us." "Silence, woman." The Duke's voice cracked like a whip. "You'll be fortunate if I don't charge you with harboring a thief." Word of the commotion spread quickly. Villagers gathered outside the cottage, their faces pressed against the windows. Clara heard their whispers, saw their suspicious glances, knew there was something strange about him. To think we welcomed him among us. Poor Clara, taken in by a common criminal. The guards seized Leo's arms, binding his wrists with iron chains. He offered no resistance, but his eyes sought Clara's across the room. Clara's heart pounded. She couldn't let this happen. Not after everything he'd done for them. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the center of the room. "Your Grace," she spoke clearly, though her hands shook. "This man saved my daughter's life when fever nearly took her. He has worked alongside us, shared our bread, and mended our roof. No common thief shows such honor or kindness." A shocked murmur rippled through the watching crowd. No one had ever dared speak so boldly to the Duke, his face darkened with anger. "You forget your place, seamstress," he spat. "Your judgment means nothing. This man will face justice at Altenburg for his crimes." The guards dragged Leo toward the door. He remained silent, his head held high despite the chains that bound him. Anna ran from her bed, clutching at Clara's skirts as they followed the procession outside. The morning air felt sharp in Clara's lungs as she watched the guards force Leo onto a horse. One by one, the villagers turned away. Doors closed. Shutters dropped. Those who had shared meals with Leo, laughed at his jokes, and accepted his help, now hurried to distance themselves from his disgrace. Clara stood alone in the muddy road, holding Anna close as she watched the mounted group move away toward Altenburg. The chains clinked with each step of Leo's horse, a sound that seemed to echo in the hollow silence left behind. The neighbors who remained whispered behind their hands, drawing back as if criminality might be catching. Clara felt their rejection like a physical blow, but she kept her eyes fixed on Leo's retreating figure until it disappeared around the bend in the road. The autumn wind whispered harsh judgment through the village streets as Clara made her way to market, her basket lighter than ever. 5 days had passed since the guards took Leo away, but the weight of scandal still hung heavy in the air. Where once friendly greetings would have welcomed her, now there were only turned backs and suspicious glances. "Look, there goes the criminals." "Friend," a woman muttered, pulling her children away as Clara passed. The words stung like a slap. At the baker's stall, where she had traded for years, the owner barely looked at her. "No trades today," he said gruffly, though his shelves sagged with fresh loaves. Clara clutched her offerings, carefully embroidered handkerchiefs that had taken days to complete, and moved on, fighting back tears. Anna tugged at her skirts. "Mama, why won't they speak to us anymore?" Clara squeezed her daughter's hand. "Sometimes People fear what they do not understand, my love." But the truth burned in her heart. They had sheltered a man accused of crimes, and now they bore the mark of his shame. Yet when she remembered Leo's gentle way with Anna, his willing hands at work, and the quiet dignity in his bearing, she could not believe him guilty. Back home, their meager supper was interrupted by a sharp knock. Clara opened the door to find a royal messenger, his livery bearing the Altenburg crest. Her hands trembled as she accepted the sealed document he thrust at her. "You are summoned to Altenburg Castle," the messenger announced coldly, "to give testimony regarding the impostor who deceived you. Failure to appear will result in severe consequences." After he left, Clara sank into her chair, the parchment heavy in her hands. "What shall we do, Mama?" Anna asked, her small face pinched with worry. "We shall go," Clara answered firmly. "We must speak the truth of what we know." In her heart, she added silently, "And I must know what became of him." The next morning dawned gray and threatening. Clara packed what little food they could spare, a heel of bread, 2 wrinkled apples, and a small wedge of cheese. She wrapped Anna in her warmest shawl, though it was thin with wear, and they set out on foot toward Altenburg. The journey that would take 2 hours by carriage stretched endlessly before them on foot. The first drops of rain began to fall as they passed the village boundaries, soon turning the dirt road to treacherous mud that sucked at their shoes with every step. "Be careful, Anna," Clara cautioned, holding her daughter's hand tight as they picked their way through puddles. The rain fell harder, soaking through their clothes, but Clara pressed on. She thought of Leo in some castle dungeon, perhaps cold and alone, and found strength to take another step and another. As darkness approached, they spotted a small chapel set back from the road. "We shall rest there tonight," Clara decided, guiding her exhausted daughter toward the humble sanctuary. Inside, a single candle burned before the altar, casting dancing shadows on the weathered walls. Clara helped Anna settle onto a wooden pew, wrapping her in their damp shawl. Soon the child's breathing deepened into sleep, her head heavy in Clara's lap. In the flickering light, Clara bowed her head. "Dear Lord," she whispered, her voice barely, disturbing the sacred silence, "grant me courage for whatever awaits us at Altenburg. Let me speak truth with wisdom, and protect those I hold dear." Her fingers absently stroked Anna's damp hair as she continued her quiet prayers, seeking strength in the solitude of the holy place. The candle burned low, marking the hours of the night. While outside, the rain continued its steady fall against the chapel's ancient stones. Clara and Anna stood before the towering bronze doors of Altenburg Palace, their travel-worn clothes marking them as outsiders in this realm of wealth and power. A stern-faced footman led them through corridors that gleamed with gilded mirrors and crystal chandeliers. Anna clung to her mother's skirts, eyes wide at the splendor surrounding them. The great hall opened before them like a dream of heaven itself. Hundreds of beeswax candles cast their golden light upon silk-draped walls and marble columns that soared toward a ceiling painted with clouds and angels. Nobles in rich brocade and shimmering silk lined the sides of the hall, their jewels catching the light like stars fallen to earth. Clara's wooden shoes echoed shamefully against the polished floor. She felt every eye upon her plain brown wool dress, heard the whispers behind painted fans and lace handkerchiefs. A lady in green silk touched her throat and laughed behind her fan, whispering to her companion about the peasant's audacity to appear in such common garb. At the far end of the hall, upon a raised dais, stood Leopold. Gone were his rough laborers, clothes replaced by a midnight blue coat heavy with silver embroidery. A sword hung at his hip, and a thin silver circlet marked his rank as prince. Yet his eyes, when they met Clara's, held the same kindness she had known in her cottage. Duke von Rheinfeld stood before the assembled court, his voice ringing with practiced authority. "Your Majesty, Your Grace," he addressed the Dowager Queen, and assembled nobles. "I present evidence of how Prince Leopold has debased his sacred title and birth. For weeks he has lived among peasants, performing common labor, breaking bread with the lowest of subjects. Such behavior threatens the very foundation of noble authority." Titters and shocked gasps rippled through the crowd. A young countess pressed her handkerchief to her lips in feigned horror. "How absolutely common," she declared loudly enough for Clara to hear. "The widow Bauer," the Duke continued, gesturing dismissively toward Clara, "harbored him in her hovel, treating our prince as a common laborer. This insult to his rank cannot go unpunished." Clara felt Anna trembling against her side. The Duke's words painted their simple home as something shameful, their honest poverty as a crime. Anger began to burn through her fear. "The widow will speak," the Dowager Queen commanded from her throne, her voice cutting through the whispers like a blade through silk. "Step forward, child." Clara moved to the center of the hall, her heart thundering in her chest. The marble floor felt cold beneath her feet, the air heavy with perfume and judgment. She curtsied awkwardly, unused to court ceremony. "Your Majesty," she began, her voice quavering. Then she remembered Leo, Prince Leopold, kneeling to comfort Anna during her fever, carrying water from the well, teaching village children their letters with endless patience. Her chin lifted, and her voice grew stronger. "I have seen true nobility in these past weeks," she declared, her clear voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "I have seen it not in jeweled rings or fine titles, but in hands blistered from honest work. I have seen it in a man who would repair a widow's roof without thought of reward, who would ride through the night to save a sick child, who would share a poor woman's bread and teach her daughter to read." The hall erupted in scandalized murmurs. Leopold stood straighter, his eyes never leaving Clara's face. "In all these glittering halls," Clara continued, her voice steady now, "I see no greater nobility than was shown in my humble home. For true worth lies not in what a man wears or owns, but in what he gives of himself to others." A hush fell over the assembly. The Dowager Queen rose slowly from her throne, her silk skirts whispering against the marble steps. Her face was grave, as she gazed down at Clara, but her eyes held something that looked remarkably like approval. The Dowager Queen rose from her gilded throne, her silver-threaded gown rustling in the hushed chamber. Her eyes, sharp and knowing, swept across the assembled nobles before settling on Clara and Leopold. "My lords and ladies," her voice rang clear as chapel bells, "for too long we have mistaken the trappings of nobility for nobility itself. True worth lies not in the circumstance of one's birth, but in the virtue of one's heart." She descended the dais with measured steps, her presence commanding absolute silence. "I have watched and listened. This woman, Clara Bauer, showed more nobility in defending truth and caring for her child than many who wear coronets, and my grandson, Prince Leopold, demonstrated wisdom beyond his years by seeking to understand the hearts of those he will one day govern." Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wind through summer wheat. The Dowager Queen's lips curved in a gentle smile. "Therefore, I not only absolve Prince Leopold of any wrongdoing, but I bless and approve his choice of bride." Gasps echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Ladies clutched their pearls while gentlemen muttered behind gloved hands. But all fell silent as Leopold strode forward, his boots clicking against the marble floor. Before the entire court, he knelt at Clara's feet. "Clara Bauer," he spoke, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. "I came to your village, seeking truth, and found something far more precious. I found love. Not the kind bound by duty or arrangement, but love born of respect, understanding, and genuine affection." He took her trembling hand in his. "Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" My wife? Clara's eyes brimmed with tears, her free hand pressed to her lips. The enormity of the moment, the hundreds of watching eyes, the weight of tradition being transformed, nearly overwhelmed her. But then she looked into Leopold's earnest face and found her courage. "Yes," she whispered, then stronger. "Yes, I will." The Duke von Rheinfeld's face turned purple with rage. He spun on his heel and stormed from the hall, his boots echoing his fury. A few of his supporters followed, but most remained, bowing their heads, some grudgingly, others with dawning acceptance, to their future princess. Little Anna, who had been quiet throughout the ceremony, could contain herself no longer. She broke free from the maid who had been watching her and ran across the polished floor, her arms outstretched. "Papa!" she cried, launching herself at Leopold. He caught her up in his arms, laughing, and held her close. Clara's heart swelled at the sight of them together, her daughter and the man who had proven himself worthy of a father's title through love rather than law. As spring melted into summer, the banns were read in Clara's village church, where she had once prayed alone, by candlelight. The same villagers who had shunned her now pressed forward after services to offer congratulations, their earlier scorn forgotten in the warmth of the royal approval. On a brilliant morning, when dew still sparkled on the cobblestones, Clara walked through the marketplace with Leopold on one side and Anna on the other. The same stalls where she had once haggled for scraps now offered their finest wares. The bailiff who had threatened her bowed low, his face red with shame. Peasants lined the street, cheering and throwing flowers in their path. Even the nobles who had summer estates nearby inclined their heads in greeting. Clara wore a simple but elegant blue gown, a compromise between her old life and new station that felt true to who she was. Leopold squeezed her hand, and Anna skipped between them, humming a happy tune. In that moment, Clara understood that love had done more than transform her life. It had transformed the very meaning of nobility itself. The crown had chosen love, and in doing so, love had remade the crown into something better, truer, and more just. If something today spoke to the part of you that still believes in love, stay a while. Subscribe. I'll be here again tomorrow with another story worth feeling.